I'm Henry Mutabazi, Project Manager, Echuya Forest Conservation, being implemented by Nature Uganda. Echuya Forest is a natural forest. It is composed of bamboo, the southern part, and then the tropical high trees on the other side, and then in the middle of it we have a swamp, which is a good habitat for the growers swamp warbler. Climate change has affected the communities especially. The soils have been degraded by a lot of cultivation, and because this area is hilly, there are a lot of floods and water runoff, so the soils have lost their fertility, and there is a lot of tree cutting, and people are also encroaching on the forest in search of fertile land for their gardens. We've mobilized communities into groups, and we've taught them to do trenches, soil and water conservation measures, and we've also put up nurseries to produce tree seedlings for them to plant on their gardens. And also we are doing bamboo domestication because it is a high quality product that they want from the forest. So we are domesticating it, and they are planting it on their land. Then we're also teaching them sustainable organic agriculture, whereby they can improve on their soil fertility and then have high production of food. One of the constraints is change of attitudes by the communities, and the knowledge and the practices. And through this we've been able to do a much of awareness creation among the communities, sensitize the communities about climate change and also how it affects them, so that they can adapt and don't cope up with the climate change effects. The lessons we've learned is that when communities are mobilized together, they can use their social capital to work together and also bring change in the communities. Some of them have started teaching others to how to do trenches, how to domesticate, and also some of them have formed groups that are supporting one another.
My name is Richard Gafabusa. I work with the International Union for Conservation of Nature, the Uganda Country Program. First of all, the Mount Elgon ecosystem cuts across the boundary between Kenya and Uganda, but with a big part of it in Uganda. On the Kenyan side, there are 3 districts, but on the Ugandan side, there are 8 districts. And we are piloting the project in 4 of those 8 districts. Generally, the Mount Elgon ecosystem is a huge extinct volcano with a big natural forest on top, which is shared by all the districts on top. And it is the biggest watershed in the area. It is a catchment for many big rivers. Increasingly, there are many changes attributed to climate change. In the last decade or so, we have seen increasing changes in temperature, especially in the lowlands and flatlands in the plains, and also increasing amount of rainfall, but also this rainfall coming unexpectedly. Sometimes it comes for a short time but so heavy, so when it rains heavily there's a lot of erosion from the open farmlands into the river. So the river beds have been affected, and when it rains the rivers burst their banks, and then a lot of siltation in the lowlands, and it is affecting livelihoods of people in the downstream, but also in the upstream because of the heavy erosion. Much of their farmlands have become less productive, and now they are struggling even to use artificial fertilizers to maintain the productivity of their land. But also because of the degradation, clearance of the natural tree cover, and then the heavy rains, they are increasing the last 1 decade. A lot of incidences of landslides and mudslides with devastating effects, including loss of lives and property. There are so many organizations, so many players in the ecosystem, international organizations, community-based organizations, even government agencies, trying to address some of these issues. For us as IUCN, we have had a number of interventions in the ecosystem for a number of years, using different approaches, focusing especially on the forest ecosystem, trying to maintain the forest so that it continues providing the ecosystem services. Until late last year, when we in partnership with the UNDP and the UNEP, we started piloting the ecosystem-based adaptation approach in the Mount Elgon, focusing on enhancing the resilience of communities, increasing the adaptive capacity, but also looking at enhancing the resilience of the ecosystem to make sure that these ecosystem services continue flowing. And we are focusing mainly on the forest ecosystem, looking at the big rivers mainly. So we are focusing on the big river watersheds, the river catchments, and river banks. So we, first of all, ecosystem-based adaptation approach being a new concept. We've initially concentrated on capacity building, doing sensitization of the communities, doing training of the communities and their leaders at different levels, from the local, district up to national level, so that first of all there is appreciation by the people, by the leaders, appreciation of the services, the ecosystem services that communities depend on for their livelihoods from the entire ecosystem. So because the ecosystem is big, and looking at the limited resources and the time we have to pilot this to showcase, so that probably in the future it can be upscaled other areas. So we narrow down to specific micro ecosystems. And what we are trying to do is we are trying to ensure and promote restoration of mainly degraded areas, degraded landscapes, mainly focusing on the big river catchments to reduce on the amount of siltation that is being experienced by the people downstream. So in one of the sites, we picked on a site which is negatively impacted by prolonged drought, and this community eventually goes to dig within the river banks, where during the drought, that's where the area there is still some soil moisture, and they have degraded the river bank. So we are trying to demonstrate the value of river seeping, the value of this water in the river as a key ecosystem coming from the national park, which is a protected area. So for them to appreciate that value of that water as a key ecosystem, we have worked together with the community and the district local government to tap this water by gravity, and this water so that people can use it for both domestic use and also for production through small-scale irrigation. And now they are able to access water, and therefore they are able to grow their crops throughout the year, regardless of whether there is rain or not. And now we are using that as an incentive for them, once they have appreciated that they need a continuous flow of this water as a key ecosystem, now to incentivize them to be able to to work with the upstream communities where this water comes from, to do a general landscape restoration, to do a general catchment protection, so that they can continuously get this water in good quantities, but also in good quality. Good quality by reducing on the siltation and erosion coming from the farmlands. We are also registering a number of constraints. One of them is, first of all, the population. The population is very high in the area, and this is directly linked to issues of land ownership. Majority of the households own small pieces of land, and in terms of aggregating the interventions, it is not very easy, because you have to deal with so many households to implement activities on like 10 hectares of land. The second challenge is still trying to balance the long-term benefits of this approach. For example, talking about restoration of degraded landscapes, which would take a minimum of 10 years for the communities to begin seeing the benefits of these interventions, vis-a-vis the immediate development needs of the people, the livelihoods. People depend on the ecosystem for their livelihoods. So there is that opportunity cost, that by implementing these long-term interventions, but they also need some immediate livelihood needs. So that balance is still a constraint for us. And the other constraint also is still related to the level of cohesion in these communities, issues of coming together and working together. Because we know this is a project which is short-term, we thought we would use the already existing and mandated structures within the community, and that is the local governance system, the local councils at the village and parish and sub-county level and district level. But these structures, for some time, they have been weakening. The other constraint is the short-term nature of the project, that if we are to really work with these communities to realize any long-term benefits, then we needed a long-term project. Climate change also has taken time for some of these things to exhibit. So people also take time to think of how to adapt. So we also need to have time to give people, try what works and what doesn't work, and then we make a conclusion. Yeah.